Welcome to VRcheology, an immersive learning experience created by students at the University of Illinois through Studio, a student-driven initiative that supports educational and research-based game development. This project was sponsored by the Anthropology Department, who uses VRcheology to support their undergraduate students. Today's experience is designed for undergraduate anthropology students, as well as other university students who want to better understand archaeological fieldwork and the processes involved in fossil excavation. The goal is to move beyond learning abstract concepts about archaeology and toward understanding what it means to be an archaeologist. This learning experience is intentionally learner-centered. Rather than positioning learners as observers of archaeological work, it places them in the role of the archaeologist. Through embodied practice, learners virtually enter an excavation site and participate in the discovery process, allowing them to connect theoretical knowledge to disciplinary practice. Learners explore a virtual dig site, observe geological layers, and engage in simulated excavation activities that mirror real-world fieldwork practices. The title of this learning experience is VRcheology, Inside a Virtual Dig Site. Experiencing the thrill of discovering artifacts from ancient civilizations is something most anthropology students have to wait years to experience. Instead, they often learn about archaeology by studying procedures, tools, and methods through books, videos, and lectures. They learn how to carefully excavate fossils, how to document findings, and how to distinguish fossils from other materials in labs and through books and practice, but without having the opportunity to apply those skills in the field. While some students may visit field sites during their studies, these experiences are limited and may not expose them to a wide range of discoveries. Why not give aspiring archaeologists the opportunity to experience discovery in a virtual excavation site? Archaeological fieldwork is inherently spatial, procedural, and experiential. Yet traditional instruction typically relies on lectures, diagrams, or photographs and videos to explain excavation methods, stratigraphy, and fossil recovery. As a result, many learners never truly experience what it feels like to work within a dig site or to engage directly with the processes that shape archaeological knowledge. This virtual reality immersive learning experience is designed to change that. The VRcheology experience addresses this gap by placing learners directly into a simulated excavation environment. Learners can navigate a dig site, observe terrain and stratified soil layers, and interact with excavation tools and fossils within a simulated archaeological context. The key affordances of this VR experience are spatial immersion, embodied interaction, and environmental simulation. Rather than imagining how excavation occurs, learners experience the site at a human scale, control their perspective, and observe how careful methodical actions influence archaeological discovery. This is not simply a 3D visualization. It is a simulated field experience that supports archaeological thinking through observation and interaction. In this demo, the learners enter a virtual archaeology dig site, and they are immediately placed within the physical context of excavation. Rather than passively observing, the learners actively explore the site by moving through space and directing their own attention. The learner sees excavation grids, exposed soil layers, tools, and partially revealed fossils embedded in the ground. The environment responds to the learner's movement and perspective. Looking downward reveals fossil placement with sediment layers, while looking outward provides spatial context for the site as a whole. This responsiveness creates a strong sense of presence, making the learner feel situated within the dig rather than observing it externally. They can examine the excavation area from multiple angles, look closely at stratigraphic layers, and focus on areas where fossils are emerging. Through this exploration, learners begin to practice disciplinary thinking. They use tools to record the location of fossils and recognize the importance of context. Learners grow their schema and begin to understand at a deeper level how archaeological knowledge is constructed and practiced. The learning objectives for this VR experience include learners being able to analyze the spatial and geological context of fossil discoveries within an excavation site. Learners will be able to demonstrate understanding of the basic archaeological excavation principles, including stratigraphy and careful removal. And learners will be able to apply observations from the VR experience to explain how archaeological knowledge is constructed through fieldwork. This learning experience is sequenced into 3 phases. Part 1, the pre-VR, orientation and framing. Part 2, the exploration phase, the immersive experience. Part 3, reflection and meaning making. Before entering the VR experience, the learners will participate in an orientation and framing phase. During this phase, the learners activate prior knowledge and are introduced to key archaeological vocabulary. They are given a guiding question. How do archaeologists responsibly uncover and interpret fossils? The learners are prompted to attend to certain features during the VR experience, such as finding stratigraphy, identifying fossil positioning, and using excavation tools. Some of the key vocabulary they will be introduced to is excavation, and we will talk about the meaning of these words, stratigraphy, context, and then we would have specific experiential language to think about and notice as they are going through the experience, like their own perspective, the presence of being in that dig site, and how immersion is really contributing to their learning. I also want to include how the learner-centered design is included in this part of the learning phase. This phase prepares learners cognitively by clarifying the purpose and the relevance. So instead of having the learners just enter the VR experience as passive viewers, the learners are equipped with the observational goals and the disciplinary language that supports intentional exploration and meaning making. In part 2, the immersion exploration, learners take on the role of the archaeologist. They navigate the virtual dig site, control their perspective, and decide where to focus their attention. Learners examine soil layers, observe fossil placement, and interact with excavation tools within the simulated environment. Instructional guidance is intentionally light, allowing learners to direct their own exploration. The learner-centered rationale for this phase is allowing the learners to exercise agency by choosing how and where to explore. The learners will engage in embodied observation rather than following a fixed path. The environment responds to the learner's movement and perspective, creating a sense of presence that supports active engagement and disciplinary thinking in context. In part 3, after the VR experience, learners will reflect on what they observed individually or in small groups. The reflection prompts encourage learners to consider how fossils were situated within the site, why careful excavation practices matter, and how archaeological knowledge is shaped by context and process. Learners connect the virtual experience to the real-world archaeological fieldwork and professional practice. The learner-centered design rationale for this phase is that this phase supports meaning making by giving the learners space to interpret their own observations and articulate understanding. Rather than receiving conclusions, learners construct knowledge through reflection and discussion, reinforcing the relevance of the experience beyond the virtual environment. The pedagogical connections for this VR experience is that it aligns with Kolb's experiential learning model. It emphasizes learning through experience, reflection, and application. Learners begin with a concrete experience of entering a virtual excavation site where they observe and interact with archaeological materials in context. Following the VR experience, learners reflect on what they observed, identifying patterns related to the excavation practices and fossil context, and apply those insights to broader understandings of archaeological fieldwork. This learner-centered structure ensures that understanding is constructed through experience and interpretation rather than delivered as information alone. There are some instructional considerations for this virtual reality experience. While immersive VR offers powerful learning affordances, its use also raises several important instructional limitations and risks that must be considered. The first one is the novelty effect versus sustained learning. This key risk is novelty effect. Because VR can be immersive and highly engaging, learners may focus on the excitement of the exploration rather than on the disciplinary thinking of the archaeological experience that it is intended to support. Without intentional framing that happens in phase 1 and the opportunities for reflection that happen in phase 3, the experience may be remembered as interesting rather than instructionally meaningful. There are also accessibility concerns. This is a key risk to note because some learners may experience physical discomfort, motion sickness, or sensory overload, while others may face challenges related to mobility, vision, hearing, or cognitive processing. Because VR environments can place high sensory and navigational demands on learners, these factors can limit engagement or shift attention away from the disciplinary learning. These concerns highlight the importance of designing VR experiences that are flexible, scaffolded, and responsive to diverse learner needs. There are mitigation and instructional safeguards that can be put into place in design strategies to support these risks. To mitigate the novelty effect, this learning experience is intentionally framed with clear guiding questions and observational goals before immersion and structured reflection after the VR experience. This ensures that the learner attention is focused on archaeological thinking and process rather than exploration alone. To address accessibility concerns, the experience is designed to be flexible and scaffolded. Learners may control their pace, limit the time spent in VR, and participate using alternative formats such as desktop viewing or guided observation. Clear instruction, reduced task demands during immersion, and post-experience discussion helps ensure that all learners can engage meaningfully, regardless of physical, sensory, or cognitive needs. Why VR? From an instructional perspective, immersion with virtual reality gives learners control over their perspective, which creates a strong sense of spatial presence. Through this learner-controlled perspective, learners actively choose where to look, what to focus on, and how to explore the excavation site. This kind of active, embodied exploration is difficult to achieve through traditional instructional methods. As learners engage with the environment, they are also practicing archaeological thinking. This embodied practice supports deeper understanding in ways that experience alone can provide. In formal instruction, students often learn about archaeology, but it is through opportunities to experience and apply knowledge that learners begin to think and respond like archaeologists. Through the VR archaeology experience, learners come to understand excavation as more than something they read about. It becomes something they have experienced. This experience provides learners with prior knowledge they can build on, allowing them to develop a new schema for understanding excavation as a process grounded in careful observation, context, and interpretation. The discussion question I'd like to leave you with is this. Does learner-controlled immersion support deeper meaning making, or can it introduce new challenges related to focus, accessibility, and cognitive load? How should these considerations shape when and how we use VR in instruction? I just want to give a special thanks to the studio team for their hard work to create the virtual reality experience, VRcheology, and to the anthropology department at University of Illinois for giving permission to share the screenshots used for this presentation. Thank you.